Thank you very much for inviting me today. As you can see from the slide behind me, I'm a stained glass artist. A little bit of background. I'm a stained glass artist in Barley Studios in York, which is literally just down the road, maybe 10-15 minutes, which is rather nice to be here today to speak with you. As I've got into speaking, I've realised that I'm actually a long generation of craftspeople. I think I'm about 5 or 6 generations of blacksmiths and cabinet makers, resulting in a female stained glass artist. So there's quite a history of craftsmanship behind me. But I never actually thought I was going to become a stained glass artist. It's quite weird here today, kind of talking 20 years on about being a stained glass artist, because I always used to enjoy painting. I've always loved art. But as soon as I was introduced to stained glass 20 years ago, I've never looked back, because it was the mixture between the art and the craft that really inspired me. There was something quite pure about it. So I did a BA at Sunderland University, which is known for the history of glass. And it wasn't until I did an MA in London at the Prince of Wales Institute of Architecture, which is now the Prince's Foundation, that I truly became inspired. I almost kind of found my direction. And this was because this course was directed by somebody, a very, very important person to me, Professor Keith Critchlow, who is renowned in the field of sacred geometry. And he kind of opened my eyes in terms of education, because it wasn't about being a stained glass artist or an icon painter, all the wonderful things we studied. It was about educata, bring out. He never told us how to do something. And I'd had a BA where everyone told me what to do. You know, you stick this pebble here and you do this, and this is abstract art. But he is extremely inspirational, and I have a lot to thank him for. So, being visual, which is what I am, let's go on to the next slide. So art is visual, and I put this slide here because it creates a conversation through the eyes. And there's various snippets of paintings that, obviously, art is my love, and paintings are my love, and painting is my love, pretty much. Okay, very famous, well, not famous, a very favourite artist of mine, but very famous too, Caravaggio. The conversation, as I say, the conversation is through the eyes. The conversation can be shaped, it can be coloured, it can be enriched, and it can be intensified. And this is through the effects of light and dark, foreground, background, colour and texture. And for me, Caravaggio is quite incredible in his use of light to the dramatic effect. So already there's kind of a 3-dimensional element to this. In the medieval period, however, stained glass was the biggest conversation in town and in churches, and this was because of the movement of Christianity throughout Europe. Stained glass was there to teach the illiterate. It was there to teach the illiterate the Bible and Christian legends, and this was done through the emotive use of colour, so the power of colour, and also through the narrative. And as you can see from this, the narrative was portrayed through the use of paint on this coloured glass. Now, I put this lovely image to the left, which is called The Gossips, and it's from a church in Stamford-on-Avon in Northamptonshire. And this is a message to all those to be wary of idle gossip. And this was actually seated at the back of a sermon behind the lectern. And we had 3 ladies with their rosary beads who should be praying, but are gossiping, basically. And what this tells you that is, if you do this while you're in front of this lectern, you will actually be devoured by demons, which is quite a powerful message. I don't think it truly would happen, but certainly something else to focus on, perhaps. And then to the right we have Abbot Sugar, who founded the Gothic architecture, a very influential man. And he is a donor figure, and he's actually offering this stained glass panel. For those who know a bit about the history of stained glass, a beautiful image called the Tree of Jesse, which is the family tree of Christ, and he's offering this family tree up, and this is for his own Gothic cathedral, Saint Denis in France. However, unlike paintings, light was able to tap into the mystical qualities and give it a godly dimension to stained glass. And I use this image from Holman Hunt that I'm sure many of you know. This image has been used time and time again. But it kind of says kind of the power of light in terms of Christianity in particular, because Holman Hunt used the quote from the passage from John, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And you can see we've got God here holding the lantern because he is the light of the world. Getting more practical, stained glass has a function. It not only does it let the light in, it actually keeps the weather out. So here you see, and this actually, in terms Richard was saying about conservation, because I do work in a conservation studio, this is actually what damages a lot of our historic stained glass condensation. So basically, taking this in light, architecture and art was therefore the platform. And these two moving together actually move together through technical innovation. Today, art and architecture have advanced technically beyond human ability with the use of computers, engineering and new materials. And the art form is no longer associated solely with the Christian message, with architectural glass seen in shopping malls, offices, banks and airports. What this has done is it's made stained glass, that's in terms of lead and glass, seem a little bit unfashionable because it's seen to many like holy wallpaper. So my aim therefore is to kind of break that in a sense. So let's show you one of my windows. For me, it is even more important to reconnect and reinvigorate the conversation of the past. But what I'm doing as a stained glass artist, hopefully, is giving a modern narrative. And I do this using symbolic, geometric and abstract forms. I don't particularly have a style, even though as soon as I got into art, everyone said, oh, you must have a style to succeed. And I've never had a style, I don't think, but it doesn't bother me. But this window here is for St Brandon's Church in Branspeth, near Durham. And St Brandon was the patron saint of seafarers, and he travelled apparently he did travel to the Garden of Paradise, which is apparently somewhere near the Canary Islands. So I thought, wouldn't it be fantastic to kind of pick some of the flowers from there, you know, this great kind of explosion of colour, the Garden of Paradise. And having just been to the Chelsea Flower Show as well, I thought, oh, you know, let's stick a bird of paradise in there. Which when it actually happened, I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? But I've got the bird of paradise and angel's trumpets, so there's an array of flowers filling this east window. I was able to do this because sadly this church was destroyed by a fire, so all the existing interior was no longer there. And the architect actually obviously had to redesign it with a very cool interior, very geometric and very symmetrical. And this was the inspiration for me to actually put something asymmetrical in there with this explosion of colour. So it was very much the building that kind of inspired me to create the work you see here. Okay, I'd now like to focus on another project which is very local to here, which is at Beverly Minster. And this is another example of a visual conversation, but not only using stained glass. I've put this in because I also do sculpture. And again, this is to try and intensify that conversation. Beverly Minster wanted to have something in their minster that was from the 21st century, because they felt it was becoming slightly like a museum, and they wanted to kind of reconnect people visually, I think would be the word, wouldn't it, for the talk. And they asked lots of artists and craftsmen to design something in their retro choir that would represent the 21st century. So there were stone carvers, metal workers, stained glass artists, letterers who were asked to come with the design. And just at that initial time, I thought, goodness, it's not just about stained glass, you know, they look into all sorts of ideas. So I came up with a scheme, and amazingly, I got the scheme as well, which I'm going to go into detail now. But in talking about the conversation, there's 7 points that I always think about when I'm trying to connect with my view and to create that dialogue. So if we may, I'll just go through this project with you. So, my first point is the history of the building. Beverly Minster is dedicated to St John of Beverly, and he was a canon of York Minster, and then he founded Beverly and Beverly Minster. However, he was known to do miracles of healing and was canonised. So Beverly Minster obviously buried him within their church in the retro choir, which is the most eastern point of the Minster. So we have St John of Beverly, and we have his shrine, obviously he was canonised, which is in the retro choir, and that was where this 21st century artwork was to be housed. So I was thinking, what's interesting about this? And the main thing is that this is a pilgrimage site, because people go from York Minster to Beverly Minster to see this very shrine. So I thought, well, that's my inspiration for the 21st century pilgrimage. So immediately, just looking at the building, looking at the architectural space, started to inspire me. The first part of my scheme is the window you see on the left, which naturally is called the Pilgrim Window. And obviously there was no window there originally, it was completely clear glass. And I thought, well, how am I going to relate to this beautiful medley of medieval and Victorian fragments? And I thought, I have to do something abstract, and I'd never done abstract before, I was very figurative. But I thought this space needs something abstract. So, thinking on geometry and thinking how, certainly with Keith Critchley's philosophy of connecting the universe and thinking much bigger, I thought about the geometry within my window kind of spiralling us up to the centre, which is the light that then comes back to us equally. So we have this window on the left, which is like a vortex, and there's pilgrims, abstracted pilgrims that work up to the centre there. And because I'm very keen to respect the existing artwork, I use similar colours that you see in the medieval window, but I introduce some modern colours such as orange, just to give it kind of a fresher interpretation. My third point is the relationship of the artworks to the people who use the building. And Beverly Minster were very keen as well that they have two types of people. They have those who want to pray, but they equally have loads of visitors who just want to enjoy the space. And this was very important to me too. So within my artworks, I designed another 3 parts, which were sculptured pilgrims. You see 2 copper figures in the background. Prayer stands, and kneelers, and seating, and a candle stand. And I designed these so that whichever way you walked into the retro choir, you'd either see the window first that shone down to the sculptures, or you'd see the sculptures that shone up, so there was movement already starting. Because early on I was just concerned if I just put a window in, it was just becoming a bit of a cul-de-sac really. There was no idea of pilgrimage and movement. Also, geometry is very key to this scheme as well, because these pilgrims are made of triangles and the window's made of triangles, so I wanted some way of identifying that window to us, but in a 3-dimensional way. So you see they're made up of all these abstractions, and the idea was before they kind of get the light, they break down into the purest form of geometry. And then the candle stand ultimately as well is where we all kind of place our candle from whatever backgrounds we're from, and we're all part of a bigger journey in a sense. And my 4th point, I think that's right, is the relationship of the works to other artworks. Again, I feel it's very important that you have to respect what's around you. You can't start throwing your ego in there and create confusion. It's very important to continue this conversation with existing artworks. So I made sure that I tried to let the artworks move around the existing artwork, so and that helped with the pilgrimage and the movement as well. And you see here that the pilgrims have kind of curved tops which match the niches surrounding it. And also in relation to the window as well is similar in colours as I mentioned to you before. And then structural limitations isn't really a very attractive inspiration probably to some, but I really like the idea of working to commission. In fact, I love it because it brings out so many different things in what I create. And with stained glass, I really love designing for buildings because every opening, every building is different. And to me, that kind of creates a structural limitation. Certainly in using lead and glass, you're governed by support bars and all sorts of things. And rather than find that a problem, I think that that's good for me because I've got to somehow use those, but kind of break through it as well, which is quite inspiring. And then finally, going back to Holman Hunt and the idea of light, the wonderful thing about stained glass is it's enlivened by light at all times of the day. And in particular, this window that I created for Beverly Minster is south-facing. So at a certain time of the day, the light shines down onto the sculptures and illuminates the glass hearts. So my idea is that immediately that's intensified that connection, that conversation between the existing artworks as well as to ourselves. And then finally, this is just an example of my figurative work. This is a little boy who's in darkness, and the light is about to lighten his life. Thank you.